Hi, my name is Kelsey Harding, and this is my addiction project. So, today we will be talking about diving deeper into addiction. So, this class taught me a whole lot, and I wanted to kind of just get to talk about today, and I made this brochure about what I really learned about this class. So, first is the question, who are addicts? So, I really learned this semester that addiction can affect anyone, regardless of race, age, gender, or economic level. However, it affects everybody differently, depending on their personality, their genetics, their family dynamics, and their culture. I feel like this was really displayed in the books we read, especially America Anonymous, as we had people like Marvin, who was like an 80-year-old recovering alcoholic, but then we had other people like Bobby, who were younger and really in the midst of their addiction. So then that's really what I like learned about who addicts are, that they really can be anyone. Um, so then I really want to talk about what is addiction. And this is the um, definition that I've kind of come up with just after accumulating everything we learned this semester and really just summing up what it taught me. And I said that addiction is a disease where the brain is convinced it needs a certain substance or habit in order to achieve happiness or even survive. It is chronic, debilitating, uncontrollable, compulsive, and obsessive. So then I wanted to talk about what really stood out to me throughout this course. And I think something that really did shock me was how much of a disease addiction is and how much it can mess up how your brain functions. So we learned that 50 to 70% of this disease is considered genetic. That means that due to your family history or just your genes, you are predisposed to be a potential addict, which is really shocking to me. I was also really just, it was really intriguing to learn how drugs impact the brain to the point that they can alter your mood, your memory, your perception, and your emotions. Drugs are also classified as either depressants, stimulants, or hallucinogens. And so much of addiction involves genetics or affects the brain functioning, making recovery difficult. Later, we'll talk about dopamine and how that affects the brain, but it is just crazy how much addiction is a disease and it's not a choice. And then cravings and triggers and the social stigma make recovery even harder than it already is. Whenever we had to do our 28-day challenge, even though I was in no way addicted to the substance I gave up, had cravings and triggers, so I can imagine how much that would be amplified with a true addiction. And addiction may be biological, psychological, or may begin for biological, psychological, or social reasons. And due to this, and also just from what we learned in the class, 13 to 19-year-olds are most at risk for developing an addiction. But this really does make sense as one, they are going under hormonal changes, and they are also um, just trying to fit in with their peers, trying to figure out who they are and what's important to them. And so that may cause them to really just be evaluating who they are and then cause them to make maybe some not wise decisions, not really knowing the consequences that or the risk for addiction. So, another really interesting thing that I learned this semester was the difference between process addictions and substance addictions. And that there really are those two categories because I knew about substance addictions, but I didn't know that process addictions was an actual category. I'd heard of each individual addiction, but I didn't know there was a word to sum it all up. So while a substance addiction is an addiction towards alcohol and drugs, and a process addiction deals with addictions like shopping, sex, eating, and gambling, both come from a compulsive and obsessive need for whatever they are addicted to. So that really covers kind of what I learned about addiction, and so then it goes into recovery. And what does recovery look like? So first, why is recovery so difficult? And we touched on this earlier, but recovery is a long-term process as the brain must begin to rewire itself. When the addiction is to a particular drug, dopamine and other chemicals can be rewired to release more than a typical amount, making the brain only crave that substance. And it can really just mess up how your brain regulates and how it works. So the brain's ability to make decisions and regulate stress decreases, and the brain's reward mechanism gets completely messed up as substances release toxins that just make the brain confused, and it poisons the brain. Addicts believe that that they need their addiction in order to survive or to be remotely happy, and so it can be really difficult to make that step into recovery. But that does not mean that recovery is impossible. So the book Six Steps to a Lasting Recovery was actually really interesting to me. I really enjoyed reading it, and I thought it was really insightful. And it highlights a way to move towards recovery. First, it talks about how there has to be hope, and then a positive and unique identity begins to develop. You move on to develop healthy coping skills, and then you have a capacity for meaningful relationships. You begin to achieve and accomplish things, and finally, you have a true identity of who yourself is apart from whatever you were addicted to, and you begin to move into recovery. And then America Anonymous gave us a lot of images of what recovery can look like. Many addicts attended support groups, treatment centers, or even online accountability groups. And so many times, just like the program AA states, there's those 12 steps. And while not everyone goes through those 12, exactly, many of them are touched on, as you have to admit and want to get better. You have to have people supporting you and with you. And in recovery, you just have to be willing to just like be willing that your desire to get better at least somewhat outweighs that addiction, and can fuel you towards recovery. So one must not only defeat their addiction and its consequences, but also the social stigma attached and the negative effects of treatment intervention. And all those together can really make recovery really hard. And after this course, I was really just in awe of all those who have achieved recovery. It just is a testament to how strong they are and how hard they've worked to achieve that. So that was just really inspirational to me. And I really just enjoyed this class and all the books we got to read for it and such. But overall, in reflection, I really enjoyed taking this class. It really opened my eyes to the world of addiction, how it affects people, and how hard people have to work to overcome it. And so that's my presentation. I hope you guys like it. Thanks.